aha that you had with Go Stetsa, did that affect the Sonics and what you did with Top Billin then?
No, Top Billin, so it's funny you mentioned them both. So Top Billin and Go Stetsa, both mistakes. Top Billin is a trigger of a drum pattern that I made that Milk threw in the SP12, and it comes out like that. And then I produced it, kind of guided it, directed it, and then kind of came down to the end. And they said, "Are we gonna take this into the big studio?" And I was like, "No, we're gonna master it straight from the 4-track." And they was like, "For real?" And I was like, "Yeah, for real," because the way this thing sounds, I had already learned from Rock De La Stet. We was never gonna duplicate that. And so, but no, I don't think. I think the one thing I can say it did, if I wanted to relate it to Go Stetsa, is, and I still do it today, it's just kind of opened me up that, there's always, when I lecture, one of the things I talk about all the time is the space that's not there, because that's what hip hop was, right? It's always the space that's not there. A lot of times people talk about what's already going on, but you got to understand, for us that came up in hip hop, we was always looking for the space that's not there, because none of the things we wanted were in place. We weren't on the radio. We weren't touring. These are just things that we're looking forward to. So you have to allow this energy to just vibrate, manifest, and turn into what it's going to be. So we would just always, and like I said, musically, I think I'm still this way, just always open for what I don't know is going to happen. I'm going to do everything I know how to do. If it's cutting and scratching, I'm going to cut and scratch. If it's playing a drum machine, I'm going to play a drum machine. Whatever I need to do and know how to do, I'm going to do. But I always know that there's going to be something that happens, some in there that's probably going to make the difference in the song. And so that part, I would say, existed in both of those recordings. Existed in Go Stetsa, it existed in Top Billin. But I've always, and that's the reason I do artist development now, right? I've always tried to look at people for what they were worth in their own unique way. And you got to understand, I come from Melly Mel and Mo D and Kaz and them. So in that time, nobody sounding the same. So, you want everybody to kind of manifest into what they are. So, I totally understood the Audio 2 I thought it was just a phenomenal sound of its own. Audio 2, no different than when Paul came to me and played De La. It's a sound of its own. It got nothing to do with me, ain't got nothing to do with anything I heard before. And those things I really enjoy.
So then, as we get to In Full Gear, as you guys are, now have toured, seen stuff, you've had a lot of success as a producer outside of Stetsasonic. How did the dynamics of the group and your approach to making songs change from before In Full Gear to what ended up being In Full Gear?
I think I would describe that like a traveler, right? So when you first travel, you might only take one suitcase, right? Thinking, I can get by with this one suitcase. I'll be fine with this one suitcase. And then you go on the trip and you realize, man, I should have brought my bullet. I could have made smoothies. I could have brought this. I could have brought that. I need to get me a Bluetooth speaker, because, it was only that little, clock radio speaker in the hotel, that type of thing. So In Full Gear, I think we had much more arsenal. We were totally prepared to try a bunch of stuff. We had cut drums already. We had been on tour with the drums. We was writing In Full Gear when we was on tour with On Fire. You know what I mean? So we were like, I mean, we were anxious to go into the album for the first, to go into the studio for the first album. But I think that anticipation to go in the studio for that second album, it had to be at least double. Cause
Well,
we, huh?
as you had mentioned, early rap or hip hop culture in general just being so fun, like that album, in my opinion, comes in the best year of rap history. But it also sounds like that is a fun album, and the fun you can feel it through a lot of the different the performance of, especially vocally,
Right.
from you guys as rappers, and that's one component of it. But I think musically, with Sally is one, Miami Bass is one, obviously Talking All That Jazz, Float On, DBC Let the Music Play. There's so many songs that have so much sonic variance and different atmospheres that and I still am. It just blows me away that the creative element and the difference of it, because especially being in '88, where you had, in my opinion, all the best collection of albums in one year.
Yeah, '88 is the year.
I agree. It's the best, and it's not really close to me.
Yeah. '87 was the only thing close.
But there weren't that many albums.
There wasn't that many albums, but it was a good year for hip hop. '87 was a good year for hip hop. '88 was the bomb.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So that being said, for you guys, what was the distinction with the in-full and the in-gear sides? What was the strategy of that?
I think so in-full gear is a take on a breakbeat by Bobby Hammond called Shifting Gears, right? And so we call it in-full gear because we knew we was going to use shifting gears for something. That boom, 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 boom. We knew we was going to use that for something. You know what I mean? And so it was a take on that. Sally was written during the On Fire time. It was actually done. It's a fun fact about Sally is I waited until we had the test press for On Fire, and then I went and played Sally for Monica Lynch. Sally was my anchor to have a guarantee to have a second album.
Well, I'm gonna tell you, in Maryland, that was probably the biggest song, even though Talking All That Jazz and all the other records might have been real singles or videos or whatever. Sally was the one that they played the most in the radio. And when I got a little older, they still were playing it in the clubs I would go to.
Well, hey, I tell this people often, I don't remember a show that we've done in the last 20 years that we didn't close with Sally. We always close with Sally. And Sally is also that's the heartbreak of Stetsasonic, because Stetsasonic and I'm me included, meaning the entire band, always feel like we would have been huge if they would have gave us a Sally video. And that was it's always something. It's a stain. If you talk to anybody in Stet and you talk about a Sally video, and you'll hear some passion, because they wouldn't give up, because Tommy Boy was saying videos don't sell records, and our peers were leading with videos. Tommy Boy wasn't allowing us to lead with videos at all. It was you lead with the record. If the record pools pick it up and it looks like the radio station is going to give it some go, then we'll put money behind the video. But up until then, we won't.
Well, that was always something that had baffled me. So now I understand, even though I don't like the answer.
Right.
Because that song is so amazing. Man, even though I'm not in Stetsasonic, that breaks my heart. But that's
yeah. I mean, that's a hard fact about us. Really hard.
So what do you think, since you guys had Faye and then Sally and then Susie, you guys, I would say Stet to me is known as the hip hop band and Talking All That Jazz and this other stuff, but why do you think the singles about women or with names of women were so big for you guys?
I don't really know the answer to that. I do know that. So a lot of the shaping of the band, happens in different ways, right? So Delight plays a very interesting part in the shaping of who we are. And so it will be D that says, let's go, we need to do another girl, D. We need to do something else about, you know what I'm saying? Like, it'll be him, because Delight was the guy that always said, Stetsasonic makes music for the mind, body, and soul. And so he says, I don't want to get pigeonholed into being a message group, although we are going to make music for the mind. I don't want to get pigeonholed as making these dance records, although we are going to make people dance and do some of this party stuff. And we want everybody to feel good regardless to what we do. So whether it's Float On or Miami Bass, that's the soul part. And so he was adamant about that, and we followed that example. So, and it was D. It was always D that says, "Yo, D, we got to." Even now, we're making an album right now, and I'm sure at some point in this album, D gonna say, we got to do a joint about a girl, D. You know what I mean? And we'll do it. You know what I mean? Why they end up being so popular? Maybe the interpersonal. Maybe because I still think to this day, women, if not in sales, because now sales is it's a wash in terms of the way you think about sales, because it's now streaming and all of that. But I think women have a big influence on hip hop in terms of who, what they're listening to. I think it's still that way for hip hop, that, you need X amount of women to support this thing that you're doing in order for it to quote unquote fly. And I think, you're a guy, you're making a record about a girl. If it's interesting enough, the girl's she's either putting herself in the story or she's putting herself outside of the story. She's either saying that's me or that could never be me. But either way, they're still thinking about it. So that could be why. I mean, I don't know the real answer, but that's my guess.
Okay. Interesting. Because I do remember when I had seen you back in '96, when we were both much younger men at the Rap Sheet conference in D.C. I'll never forget, because you stopped and told the audience to look around, and you said, look. And we looked around, and there was literally one woman and like 40 dudes. And you were like, look at who's in this room and who's making this music. And there's only one woman here, and that's wrong. And that obviously I remember that till today. But for you to understand that very early on, given that there was not many women in the face of hip hop, and even less in the face of rap, or really more in the face of rap and less in hip hop, I would say. Why did that make such a big mark in your mind in 86, 87, 88?
Well, I think that, right, it's part of what I said to you earlier about being an extension of the music that came before us. And so the music that came before us, I'm not saying misogyny wasn't there, but it might have not been as thick as it was in hip hop. So hip hop just kind of, I don't know, it almost had a male bully element to it. And to me, that was a little bit of an imbalance, because I probably couldn't see how do we win without having the Diana Rosses, without having the Mary Reeves, without having the Mama Staples and the Linda Joneses, the Gladys Knights. Like, how do we win that way? And I think I was thinking about it then very strongly like that, because there was no guarantee that we were going to blow. I mean, there was definitely no guarantee that hip hop was going to be as big as it is today. And so I'm thinking we're gonna need this energy, just like R&B had this energy, in order to move forward.